Expert property sales service, specialist in agricultural sales, land lettings, which we still do. Valuation surveys prepared for probate mortgage, still do that. Collection of rents and property management, and insurance of all types arranged with reputable companies. And district agents for the Village Building Society.
Hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of Little Bangor Stories with me, Anne-Marie Foster. The voice you just heard is Denis Neill, and he's reading an advertisement from a 55-year-old book that would have been in many local homes and businesses in 1970, the Bangor Street Directory. The ad was for his family's firm, John Neill and Sons, which is still in Main Street. In fact, it's opposite the Spectator building where the directory was printed. Denis is retired now, so we got together to have a look at some pages from the book, beginning with the listings for Lower Main Street.
Do you see any names, old names that you might recognise in that list?
I'm sure I do now. There's Margaret Malloy. Well, now, that's an interesting story. The Malloys, there were a sister, Margaret, and her two brothers, Francie and can't remember the name of the other one. But where the flagship centre is now, that's where they had their premises. And they had a barber's shop. You went up the stairs and the back, but two shops underneath, which we used to manage for them. We let those for them. First of all, Margaret died, and she was the whole brains in the operation. And the two brothers were left. And then Francie died. Sammy was the other one. Or was it the other? But I can't remember who died first. They had a house in Shandon Drive, and their life was cutting hair during the week, going to the British Legion on a Saturday night and having a few bevs, and they would stagger back to Shandon Drive late on a Saturday night. Now, eventually, Sammy died. There was none left, and we were selling the house in Shandon Drive, and it was an absolute typical bachelor men living on their own, a mess of a place. We got people in to clear the house out. Carpets, the whole lot had to be lifted. While lifting a carpet in the big room downstairs, one of them noticed a loose floorboard. So we pulled back the carpet, opened up the floorboard. Underneath was a big tin. And what was in the tin? About £200,000 in notes.
Wow.
They had a bank account in the Northern Bank at that time, and they had a current account, and the current account was about £150,000, not earning a penny of interest. Anyway, full marks to the people, they could have absconded with that. The will was left in a way that the vast amount of their estate was left to Hamilton Road Presbyterian Church. And the church gladly took that money and they put it into building a new hall, which is called the Malloy Hall.
There you go. I would never have known that. Isn't that an amazing story?
So they are. That's a true story.
So maybe if the builder hadn't been so observant and given the £200,000, they might have only had half a hall. But
exactly.
That was a very generous bequest in those days, wasn't it?
It certainly was.
And so we moved on up the Main Street, and talk turned to grocery shopping.
There's Bailey Clanny, that was Gordon Clanny, estate agents, remember that? Bill Bailey and Gordon. The National Bank of Ireland manager H.P. Williamson, Harry Williamson, still going strong. Millsop, yes, they had a grocer's shop, I think.
You mentioned grocery shops. At the beginning of the street directory, it gives you a list of all the types of businesses and who they all are. And of course, we're sitting in Main Street now, and right across the road practically is the big Asda store that sells everything. But in 1970, we had no supermarkets in the middle of the town.
Exactly.
Sure we didn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Smith and McClure's was another great shop
yes.
just down the street.
Yeah, I'll show
and David
you.
Mahoney, the butcher, he's still there.
And I want to show you this ad here for the Maple Food Store.
Yes.
Do you remember the Maple Food Store?
I do indeed. Bangor's high-class grocer carrying stocks of groceries, provisions and delicatessen specialties, unobtainable elsewhere in the town. The finest European savouries, the pick of Asian delicacies, the best of American foods, courteous and friendly service, prompt free deliveries to all parts of Bangor.
Well, weren't we lucky in Bangor in 1970 to have a place that had the best of American foods,
Exactly.
the pick of Asian delicacies, and everything European we could want? Do you remember that shop on High Street?
I do indeed, yes. Mm-hmm.
But I find this incredible. All around the town centre, there must have been, maybe 6, 10 little grocery shops listed where you could more or less go in and buy almost everything you needed.
That's quite right. I mean, there was no such a thing as the like a Bloomfields or Spring Hill shopping centres in those days.
Yeah.
But the town centre was a real hive of activity, which sadly is no longer the case.
Yes, times
change.
Don't they?
But it's not just Bangor, it happens, Anne-Marie.
That's true. But this really tickled me that they were so far-sighted that they didn't just advertise meat and potatoes and things. It was, they'd set themselves apart by being a delicatessen.
Yeah, that's right. That's quite right.
Now, while we're on the subject of shops and foodstuffs, under the listing for tomatoes,
yes,
we have here, first of all, Forsyth's Nurseries. And then for some reason...
Yeah. McClure's Travel Services?
Did they grow tomatoes as a sideline, do you think?
I think that's a misprint.
I think it's a wee misprint too.
Funny, I remember Billy McClure was a great pal of my dad's. And whenever I started working here, there was a great restaurant at the bottom of Main Street, the Rendezvous.
Oh, well, let's have a look.
Yes, it would be round about number 14 or be up here somewhere. A.E. Crawford, that's it.
And that was the...
That was the Rendezvous Cafe.
Oh, describe it to me. What is...
Now, you went up the stairs, it was upstairs, and...
that wasn't the Co-op, was it?
No. The Co-op was on the other side.
Of course.
I can't remember what was underneath it, but it was Mr. Crawford was beside the Wesley Hall. That belongs to Queen's Parade Methodist Church and Hannah's Pharmacy. Anyway, you went up the stairs and you got a soup, main course and a sweet for, in the old days, 2 and 6.
2 and 6. Can you calculate how much that is?
12.5p. My father would have gone down every day at his lunch there. And there was my dad, Billy McClure, the travel agent. There was a wee man called Bob Woodman who ran the Marine. And who else was there? Can't remember. There was somebody else, one of the solicitors. Anyway, that table was a really... It was like listening to the radio, the crack that they had. David McCulley would have been down. McCulley's Bob Woodman. You would have gone in there and Bob ran the Marine Bar.
Which is now the Rabbit Rooms.
Rabbit Rooms. And he had that many managers, he got fed up with them. And he said, I'm just going to do the thing myself. And he would have stocked the bar himself after the bar closed every night. And I was sitting there. And Bob would be working away, and I says, well, Bob, what time did you get to your bed out last night? Oh, Dennis, I think it was about 4 o'clock. And you laid away, and then you come in the next day. Huh? Well, Bob, what happened last night? 5 o'clock, Dennis. And one day he was putting peas onto his fork, and he just went like there. Oh, my God, this man's had a heart attack. Bob, are you all right? Well, what do you say? What do you say? He'd fallen asleep eating his dinner. But honestly, 2 and 6, you got a full 3-course meal.
My goodness me.
And the waitresses all wore lovely black outfits with white aprons. fantastic.
Oh, was it open in the evenings as well?
No.
Just a daytime.
Just daytime.
Food, yeah.
But that place was full at lunchtime.
Did you?
All businessmen.
Yeah. Who could afford to be maybe just
Yeah.
a wee bit over the hour?
Yeah, exactly. Well, in those days you could do that. Nowadays, heavens almighty, you have to breathe your lunch.
Any other names that take your fancy from Main Street? Of course, I mean, the Spectator.
Well, John Pringle had a garage there. John was a great man. He raced cars, you know. We would have gone down to Kirkeston
And there's another garage right next door to him.
Mains, yeah.
Did both of them have petrol pumps outside?
And both had petrol pumps.
That must have been fun negotiating the roadway.
Absolutely. Both had petrol pumps right in the middle of Main Street in Bangor.
Yeah, so, and they're all gone now.
They're all gone. And then there's R.H. Finlay, Gordon, and Cecil was a great man. Cecil lost his wife, unfortunately. He lived in Ward Avenue. And then there was another nice lady, Olivia Reid. But both of them lost their respective partners. And Cecil was about, he would have been well into his 80s. And they used to go out for a walk every day. And they would bump into each other. And I don't know if it was Olivia or Cecil suggested, we should do this more often and just... And they ended up getting married.
Oh, that's sweet.
But I remember Olivia lived at Ballyholme Esplanade, and Cecil, in his courting days, late 80s, went down to her house to park his car to go out for a walk. They had a nice walk, came back, and Cecil got into his car to drive home, and he reversed the car right over the edge, the steep bank.
Mm-hmm.
And
Ballyholme Esplanade.
I remember they had to get the fire brigade to rescue him. Now, he had the good sense to stay put, and they pulled him out and got him away.
Did he end up on the actual sand on the beach?
Oh, no.
On
The car was balanced at the top of the bank.
Like the Italian Job?
Like the Italian Job. Well, that's a wee story. But Cecil died. Cecil was well into his 90s whenever he died. Marvellous man.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
But one of the other ads that I saw in the Street Directory was from a name I'm sure you'll know as well.
Oh, yeah, McAlorum. Yep, my dad was pally with old Jimmy McAlorum.
And I think it's interesting because the ad talks about the following building sites are being developed.
Yep, mm-hmm.
The Dell in Granshire Road.
That's right, yeah.
Clandyboy Road, Bangor.
That's right, yeah.
That's quite amazing because we take those developments as if they've always been there.
I know.
So what was it like for builders like
Yep.
McAlorum and the Dunlop family and everything? Were they seeking out every little parcel of land?
Oh, yes, and the other big one at that time was Boland and Riley.
Oh, yes.
Because we acted as agents for Boland and Riley, and I think it was the start of them building out. They built Killeen Estate and at Rathmore. Most of those houses were Boland and Riley.
There must have been a massive explosion.
There was a big
of
explosion.
People coming to live in Bangor.
I think the Troubles encouraged that. People wanted to get out of Belfast, and a lot of people came down to Bangor. They might have gone to Lisburn, Carrickfergus, Ballyclare even, to get out of the heat, as it were. But I remember Boland and Riley, yes, we acted as agents for them up at Killeen. Horace Hamilton was the main man at that time. But I remember they had my dad needed somebody to work on the site office. And Dad was a great man in the golf club, and he played golf with a man called Billy Sinclair, who was a very senior civil servant. And Billy had retired, but still a very active man, and he needed something to do. So Dad asked him, would he be interested in acting as, a representative up on the site, which Billy did. And he was fantastic. And you got all these guys in the building site coming into Billy's office. We had a wee office up there with our boots. Billy would say to him, "Don't you dare come in here. Get those boots off you." And as to begin with, who's that out grumpy so in there? Anyway, in the end, he had great respect from them. And eventually he died, and Horace Hamilton was so grateful to him that he named, if you go up there now, you'll see Sinclair Avenue, Sinclair Road, Sinclair Drive, all called after Billy Sinclair.
You know, when you think back to that time, I mean, we would have had the Ring Road.
The Ring Road was being built at that time, yes, I think.
And then so many primary schools must all be able to trace their roots back to around about that time too, because you can't build a housing estate with hundreds of houses.
That's right.
Without a primary school and some shops and things like that for people.
Exactly. We had an old area plan, and you can see how the town just expanded. But the problem that Bangor has always had, Anne-Marie, we've only got a 180 degree, if you like, half circle to work from. The other half is the sea. You go to any other provincial town, most provincial towns, Ballymena, Dungannon, Omagh, they all have a big hinterland, 360 degrees. Bangor only has 180 to work from.
But is the sea not why people want to come and live in Bangor?
It is, yes. That's one of the reasons, exactly. Yeah.
Bit of Queen's Parade here as well, which
oh gosh, yes,
there's a few names that even I can remember that might have been still there in my youth.
There's Macaulay's Queen's Court Hotel, yes, remember that, yeah. J.T. Good, I remember, yes, Mr. Jim Good, yep. And there's a whole lot of flats there, yeah.
No, it just says J.T. Good, but that was actually a hotel, wasn't it?
I think it was.
Tedworth.
Or no, did the Tedworth not move
Winston.
up to Winston?
The Winston Hotel.
Winston Hotel. That's right. Yeah, the Winston Hotel. Yeah. I remember Jack Miller sold paint and that sort of stuff. But Jack was a great fisherman. He had a fishing boat. And I can remember Jack coming in one day, and there was, in those days, Queen's Parade, if there was a storm coming in, a big northerly gale, and you went down Queen's Parade, the sea would be lying along Queen's Parade, and you had to battle your way down. In fact, bad weather in the winter time, Queen's Parade, hardly anybody went near it.
The first person I talked to for this, Jim Bowl, his shop's number 37.
Oh, yes.
And he said that the day he and his wife Margaret came back from the honeymoon, there'd been a storm and there were crabs in the back garden.
Yeah.
They lived above the shop, and starfish in the grates. So the waves had crashed up across the road over his house. Yeah. And he said business was always very bad in the wintertime.
In the wintertime. Oh, yeah. But Jack, I remember, I'll never forget this, he says, Dennis, you know what they should do at Queen's Parade? He says, close that road off and put a road at the back of the shops, so that the shops, instead of facing out towards the sea, would be facing inland, and they'd get the benefit of the sun, they'd be sheltered from the bad weather, and redevelop it the other way around, so to speak, back to front. And I often thought, he had something there, but that never happened.
Still, all these little businesses thrived along.
They did.
The road that we had.
The Queen's Cinema, remember that?
The cinema. We had bakeries. We had a photography shop. Mr. Kirk would take your
photographs.
That's
do
you remember that?
I do indeed. Yes, I remember the photography shop down there. That's quite right.
And various other bits.
And then you're going up Pollock's News Agency in Grays Hill. Yes, I remember. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Of course, as well as reminiscing, I did ask Denis if he'd enjoyed his working life in Bangor.
People think all they do is sell houses. That's only part of it. If you see some of the things that we're asked to do here, well, for example, the main road between Bangor and Newton Ards, I can remember we acted for a lot of the landowners there. You're dealing with government departments, people laying pipelines through land. You're dealing with that. You're dealing with a rent review of a shop. Somebody's died. You have to go out and value all the furniture. They used to do all that sort of stuff. And auctioneering was another part of it, which I really enjoyed. We had the auction room upstairs.
And that was to sell property now. It wasn't to sell bits of
Sell
jewellery.
property. But in the old days, it was selling everything. My dad had an auction mart. He started off in Lower Main Street, and at the back of the office was an auction mart, and they had auctions, not every week now, but every fortnight. It's a bit like what Bangor Auctions does now, everything. And my dad did a lot of farm work, and you know, you would have selling everything from bullocks and sheep and machinery, all sorts of stuff. Oh no, and the land lettings was another thing. I remember going out to do John Woods's lovely big farm out the Granshire Road, and you'd go out and you'd walk down, right boys, what have I bid for this field here, so much an acre, and you walk the whole length of the farm, letting off all the fields, and then Mrs. Woods would have taken you in and a big buns and sandwiches. Would you not have another one, Dennis? Come on.
So you always look forward to those days.
Oh, it was great. They were great days. Great. You really. And Clandyboy Estate, we used to do all the land lettings for Clandyboy Estate, and going out to we did that in the banqueting hall, and they would always take you to the Crawfordsburn Inn for a big feed, and then the auction was after that. Should have been the other way around.
Well, I don't know. If you had a few glasses of wine, your checkbook might have got a bit looser.
Yeah. And then we used to auction off. They had a whole lot of cottages. We used to auction off the cottages, and that room was full every time we had an auction in any of their cottages. I remember selling a building site for them one time in Helens Bay, and there was a big crowd up there. It was a lovely site down near where the tennis courts are. And they were the bidding went very well, and it got down in the end to two bidders, one of whom was a very well-known builder called Fred Fraser. And Fred was dressed immaculately, a nice smart suit and a jacket, tie, and the guy he was against was a young, I can't remember his name, but he was a car engineer, and he came in his overalls, stinking oil and petrol and one thing or another. Anyway, the two of them were really having a ding-dong, and it ended up, got to the final bid, and it was the car engineer. And I looked at Fred, and he shook his head. No, that's me out. So I was knocked down to this fella, and all credit to Fred, he came up and shook hands with him, and he wished them all the best. I thought that was very nice. So that doesn't happen so much, but and I think they built a nice house on it or something in the end. It's a people business, really, and people trusted you, and I think that was one of the aspects of it. But yeah, I enjoy meeting people, and certainly, you know, this type of work, there's no question about it. You're meeting people. They're not just a number, and you come across all sorts of situations. Some of them nice, some of them not so nice. But it's all part and parcel of the variety, I suppose, you get from it, Anne-Marie.
And sometimes you find £200,000 under a floorboard.
Huge thanks to Denis Neill for talking to me. I have lots of pictures on the website that illustrate our journey, littlebangorstories.co.uk. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the crack and that you might like, share and follow our stories. Until the next time.